Hello everyone and welcome to lecture number 10 in Google Cloud Platform series. And today the topic is we're going to talk about VPC network peering. First we'll understand what is VPC network peering and then where we can use VPC network peering with, and then the advantages of using the VPC network peering, and then we'll take an example or do a lab wherein we'll see how two different networks gets connected or gets peered, and then how those resources inside those two networks can communicate to each other. So let's get started. And one more important thing which I would like to point out is VPC network is a different thing and VPC network peering is a different topic. So let me see if I can show you real quick in the console so that you get an idea. So if I go to my GCP console, and if I just click on these three lines, maybe, or go to VPC network. So this is VPC network, which you define over here. You can see those VPC networks over here, and this is VPC network peering, and this is the topic for us today to discuss. So if you just read through the description of it, it says Cloud VPC Network Peering lets you privately connect to VPC network, which can reduce latency, cost, and increase security. So these are some of the advantages of VPC network peering. So let's get started. So as we discussed, basically VPC network peering connects two virtual private cloud networks so that the resources in that each network can communicate with each other. So that's VPC network peering on an easy term. And where we use VPC network peering, basically VPC network peering works with Compute Engine, Google Kubernetes Engine, which is GKE, and App Engine Flexible Environment. And another important thing if you're using VPC network peering is the packets which gets delivered using this peering connection remains inside the Google production network, and hence it has less latency or reduced latency and increased security. You can consider how much secured it would be if it's in the Google production network. So let's try to understand this with an easy paint so that things will be easier for you. So if I go over here, let's take an example like this is our Google organization maybe. Just a moment. So this is like, let's take any company, for example, HCL.com or whatever. Yeah, this is an organization. So we'll just say this as, this is organization. Yeah. And inside this organization, we may have two different VPC networks. Let's consider this as VPC network A, and let's consider this as VPC network B. So if I just name these blocks, this is VPC network A, and this is VPC network B. So basically inside VPC network, yeah, you will have subnets and then the resources as such. So maybe let's do one thing. This is also like VPC network gets created under project. Yeah. So let's draw a line over here. For the time being, let me just quickly remove this. This is not important as such. Yeah. If I go over here, I will just say this is part of project A, which is like this. project A, and this VPC network is part of project B. This VPC network is part of project B. Project B. Okay, inside project we have a VPC network A, and inside this project B we have VPC network B. And inside VPC network, basically we will create subnets. So let's mention this as subnet for project A and this as subnet for project B. So subnet for project A, this is subnet for project B. Okay. And inside subnets, you will have your resources, for example, virtual machine. So inside subnet, you will have like this, consider this as a virtual machine A, and this as virtual machine B. VM A, this as VM B. Cool. So, how to get rid of this? I don't know. Okay, let's keep it. But this is project B, don't get confused, and this is project A. So, basically VPC network peering allows internal IP address connectivity across two VPCs, regardless like whether they belong to the same project or the same organization. Yeah. So right now, if you see, this project A is in a different VPC, this project B is in a different VPC, but resources under project A, which is VM A and VM B, they cannot talk to each other until and unless we create a peering between these two. Yeah, basically peering between these two networks. Until unless we are not creating it, they will not be able to communicate. Communicate means they will not be able to do SSH ping or so. So this is called as VPC network peering. So this is just a theoretical example for you guys, but we're gonna see it practically. So let's go ahead and try to draw this in action. So we'll create a project A and this VPC network A, subnet and a resource. So let's go to the GCP console. I am in my project A. I have already created project A and project B for you guys. If you want to know how you can create project, you just go over here, click on new project, and just give a name. For example, I'll just create project C, which I can use later on, and just save it. So this is how you create a project, and a project C will be created. But we are in project A right now. We are trying to create this scenario. So let's create a VPC network A in project A, and then a subnet in project A. So I'll just name this as, this is project A, just to avoid confusion, and let me create a duplicate, and this is like, I'll open project B over here. So let me open project B. Yeah. So I'll just rename this as project B. So whatever I'll do under project B, you can see it will be like this. Sorry. And it will be under this, and it will be under this color. So let's go to project A and create a VPC network real quick. If I go over here, create VPC network, give a name to this VPC like VPC project A. VPC project A. If I go over here, I need subnets in custom mode. So I'll just say subnet which is in US, maybe for example. I'll take the region as US. So let's go with US Central 1. IP range, I can give a CIDR block or a VPC network range, which is like 10.0.0.0/24. You can assign the range as per your need, and I'll keep this as default. Subnet 1, which we have already added in US. I don't want to add another one now. I will not create or select the default firewall rules. I'll create my own. So if I go over here, hit on create, my VPC network will be created in project A. Now I am creating a VPC network in project B. So if I go over here, VPC network, and create VPC network, I am in project B. So VPC network and B. So if I go down and create a subnet, this will be subnet in Singapore, maybe Singapore, and I will have to give a range like 10.10.10.0/24, and I'm just keeping all those default. I'm not selecting the firewall rule, the default one, and hit create. So let's see, my VPC network A in project A is created, and my VPC network B, oops, we have some errors. Go to issues. Okay, we haven't selected the region. Let's select Singapore. Asia Southeast 1. Okay, and let's create. So my project A VPC network is created, and my project B VPC network is getting created. So if you see this diagram, we have created project A and VPC network A, and now subnet is also created in project A, which is US, and here it was Singapore, if I still remember correctly. And now we will create a VM in this subnet A, and we will create a VM B in this subnet. So we have to create a VM in subnet US and a subnet in Singapore. So let's go ahead and try to create a VM in subnet A. So if I go over here, click on new link, this is compute engine, and I'll do the same thing in project B so that we can create the things parallelly. So my project B VPC network is also created. That's great. And if you see, we have 0 firewall rule, 1 subnet, and for the same we have 1 subnet and 0 firewall rule. So we'll also create the firewall rule. So let's go ahead and create a firewall rule which will allow SSH and ping, so that machine in subnet A or machine in US can ping machine in Singapore. So that's what a rule which I'm trying to add. I'll just go into firewall and click on add. I'll just say allow SSH and ICMP, which is ping. If I go over here, this is my project, correct? We are creating out an ingress rule. We need to match. We can keep it in all instances in the network. Source IP would be, we can consider, for example, internet, but you can also give that specific VPC network IP. Currently, I'm allowing everyone or the whole world. And ports and protocol, we wanted to allow SSH, which is port number 22, and ICMP, which is like you can click on others, and you need to make sure you're mentioning it in small letters, not in capital. Let's click on create. So firewall rule for allowing SSH and ICMP is getting created in project A. We'll have to create the same in project B. If I go to this VPC network and then click on firewalls, click on add rule. Let's say allow SSH and ping, which is ICMP. This will create in VPC network B. Ingress, allow all instances in the network. Source IP, again, we are keeping it to the whole world, which is internet 0.0.0.0/0. We wanted to allow TCP, which is SSH 22 number, and ICMP, which is for ping. Let's create. So let's see, our firewall rule is created over here, and also in project B, it will be created soon. Let's go ahead and create an instance in this subnet, or this VPC network. Basically in subnet A, we're going to select. So hit on create. I'll just say instance for project A. We have to select the same region for which this subnet belongs to. If I just go over here, my VPC network and my subnet is part of US Central 1. So we have to select the same, otherwise we'll not be able to see the subnet while selecting. So US Central 1, zone is fine. I'll take E2 machine, which is okay, low cost for this demo. That's okay. If I go to advanced option, and I just need to select networking, and I need to select my own subnet, which I have created under VPC project A or network as such. If I select this network VPC project A, it has automatically taken the subnet which we have created in US, which is 10.0.0.0/24. I'll keep all those as default and hit create. I'll do the same in project B. I'll create a instance in VPC network B or in subnet B, which is Singapore. I'll just say instance B, which is in project B, and it was in Asia Southeast 1. Let's check what was that. If I go to VPC network, network B, and in subnet, it was Asia Southeast 1. Okay, Asia Southeast 1, this Singapore. Zone is fine. E2 machine type, machine configuration is okay. Let's go to advanced option. Let's go to networking. I'll just select my own network, which is VPC network B and subnet in Singapore, and create machine. So guys, just for information, we have created a VPC network A, subnet A, and we have created a VM in that subnet. We have created VPC network B, subnet B, and a VM in that subnet. And now we'll try to reach VM B from VM A. Let's see if you're able to do so. From my experience, we shouldn't be able to reach until and unless the pairing is in place. So my VM instance A is ready. Let's wait for VM instance B. So let's go to VM instance. So it is getting created. Let's try to SSH this VM A till that time, just to save time. And also we'll do SSH in VM B. Okay, VM B is also created. Let's SSH the same. Let's take this over here. And we haven't created the pairing yet. And let's see whether we are able to do ping or SSH from VM A to VM B. We shouldn't be able to do that, but let's check. This is my VM A and this is my VM B. So from VM A, I'm trying to reach VM's B internal IP. Let's copy this. Let's go to VMA. Let's paste this and let's see if you're able to do so. And similar thing, I am trying to reach VMA now from VMB using internal IP. Let's see if you're able to do so. I'll just say ping, and this is VMA IP, and I'm in VMB now. Let's see whether you're able to reach or not. So we shouldn't be able to reach. So it will be like still the same. It is not reaching as such. So now, once we do the peering between these two networks as such, then we'll be able to reach. So let me stop it This will not work, I know. And let's create a peering, which is our topic for the discussion. So if I go to project A and VPC network peering, so I have to do the peering from A to B from project A, and similar thing over here from B to A from project B. So let's do from A to B. First, I'm in project A. I go to create connection, continue. I say VPC network peering from A to B. Yeah. I select my VPC network, which is project A. My project B is in, my peered network is in another project. So I'll just say another project. If your VPC is in same project, you can select this. But in my case, my VPC is in another project. If I go over here, I need to get my project ID. And from here, I can get my project ID for project B. If I go over here, I'll just say project ID like this. VPC network name is this for peered network, and just mention it. Okay, make sure we don't have any space as such. Okay, IPv4 single stack, and hit create. So now we are creating a peering from project A, basically from A to B. Yeah, currently it's in inactive state. That's correct. It should be, because we have to also complete from B to A. So let's go to project B. Let's go to VPC network. Let's go to create connection, continue. I'll say VPC network peering from B to A. I will give name for my VPC network, which is peered network, which is this. I go over here. I'll just say okay, so I have selected my your network VPC is project B. My peered network is in another project. Yeah, this is the name of my VPC network. Project ID, I can go over here. I can copy it from project A. This is my project ID. So I'll just go over here and mention the project ID and hit create. Now the status should change to active from inactive. So if I go over here, it still says inactive. Let's give a couple of minutes. After refreshing, it is changed. Let's go to project A and see whether the status has changed to active. Okay, good. So if I go to my VM A and VM B and now try to do the ping, it should work. So you see, guys, so this is the magic of VPC network peering. Basically, it allows you or enables you to connect VPC network so that workloads in different VPC network can communicate internally. And workload over here was VM in our case, and the traffic basically which will be initiated from those VMs, right? That traffic stays within Google network and doesn't travels the public internet. So that's what the security comes into picture. And few of the advantages which VPC network peering gives you, like network latency, because connectivity that uses only internal IP address will have lower latency than the connectivity that uses external IP address, because external IP address are exposed and we may have many service provider involved in between and hops may get increased. Also, it provides a good network security. Service owners do not need to have their services exposed to the public internet and deal with it, associated risk. So you are using internal IP address, you are not using public IP address as such, because public IP address anyone can reach. So currently, without peering also, public IPs will be reachable, but internal IPs won't be. And network cost, basically the Google Cloud charges egress bandwidth pricing, uses external IPs to communicate, right, which is egress. So even if traffic within the same zone, and if you are using public IPs for communication, then you may have cost like those egress cost, IP to communicate, and those egress costs will be there. So with internal IP, the costing is not there as such. You have low latency, and yeah, so that's what this VPC network peering is. I hope it was useful and it was informative. So thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next. So thank you guys.